gentlemen, boys and girls, Creepypasta fans, and Slender Man the 8 Pages players of all ages, I have one single, solitary question for you guys. And it goes along the lines of, why, oh why, does this movie exist? Who in their right mind over at Screen Gem Studios came up with the logical conclusion of, hey, let's make a live-action movie of Slender Man? I'm telling you guys, there is absolutely no reason for this movie to exist. And I'll tell you why. The first reason I can say is because Slender Man has passed his prime. No one talks about him anymore. And before I can continue on, you're probably asking to yourself, who is this Slender Man? Well, since you're here, let me tell you about him. Slender Man is a very popular internet meme that was released in 2009 for a contest by Victor Surge on the Something Awful website forums. The character is known for being skinny but extremely tall and having a completely blank face and wearing a tuxedo. Its powers are known for growing tendrils out of its back, and what he does is that he kidnaps children, but his motivations are unclear. And ever since then, the character has gained such popularity and notoriety over the years, being featured in video games like Slender Man the 8 Pages or Slender the Arrival, and the character has gained a status as being the face of the Creepypasta website, a website that is basically known for sharing horror fanfiction. He's been such an iconic character throughout the internet, but the problem is, people have kind of moved on. They've moved past the Creepypasta character, and he apparently is just not as relevant anymore. And the second reason why I say this is because of an incident that happened not too long ago that is very tragic. In Waukesha County, Wisconsin, there are these two 12-year-old girls who plotted for several months straight to try to kill their best friend just to get the appeasement of Slender Man. They ended up stabbing their best friend, the victim, 19 times, but luckily the victim of the would-be murder, she managed to survive. She's still living today with her friends and family, and the attempted murderers were sentenced to 25 to 40 years in a mental hospital. So, based upon those two examples, they are pretty much enough of a reason as to why this movie should not have been made or released in theaters. But now, we stand in 2018 and we are given the live-action version of the Slender Man character in his own feature film. The directing rights were given over to Sylvan White, the guy who directed the sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, The Losers, and Stomp the Yard. What a track record this guy has, huh? So, the rhetorical question must be asked. Is this movie good? Well, as I'm reviewing this movie right now, and last time I checked, this movie is sitting at a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes and has an audience percentage of 28. Well, based upon the fact that I saw the movie, what it means is that this movie, single-handedly, is one of the worst horror movies that I have ever seen since The Bye-Bye Man and Ouija. I really hated this movie. The reason why I say this is because everything about this movie fails. Everything about this movie fails. The writing fails. The story fails. The actors didn't do their job. The visual effects are trash. The editing is abhorrent. And the scares are barren. You want me to further dive into this monstrosity of a movie? Well, let's do it. The basic premise of this movie is that it stars 4 high school girls who are basically the most unlikable group of teenage horror movie idiots that we have seen all year. One of them being played by Joey King, and the other, I guess, was in Ouija 2 Origin of Evil. The thing is that these girls had heard of this urban legend of the Slender Man. And the reason why we heard about this urban legend was because of a couple of girls who were managed to summon Slender Man. And one of the ways of summoning Slender Man was by watching a video online a la The Ring style. So, in predictable fashion, like other horror movie teenagers do, they decide to watch the video. They decide to try and summon Slender Man. The next day, they start getting these nightmares and these scary dreams and hallucinations. Pretty much stuff you would see in every other psychological horror movie, especially Jacob's Ladder. Then the group realizes that one of their friends has gone missing, basically guessing that the Slender Man took her. And so it's up to the group to save their missing friend and to evade the horrors of Slender Man. Let me start off with one of my biggest problems with this movie. The movie's story is highly uncreative. There's nothing new that this movie has to offer. This movie basically takes concepts from other movies and injects it into this one film. You have the concept that is basically stolen from The Ring. You had the dreamlike hallucinations from Jacob's Ladder. You had the cliche of the drunk abusive dad. You also have the cliche of the false jump scares. And because of the fact that it borrows so many elements, it just becomes tedious to watch because you've seen it all before. Let me get into another thing that's also not good about this movie. the acting, and the characters. These group of girls are some of the most unlikable horror movie protagonists you are likely to see in a theater. They treat people around them poorly, especially their parents. They trespass into property without anybody's permission, and they constantly make one stupid decision after another. But the worst thing about them is that they don't feel like characters. They're mostly fabricated. There's no depth or dimension to any of these characters except for the fact that, hey, you need to have subplots for these characters that are completely cliched and something you would see in any other horror movie, and most of the actors in this movie are totally terrible because they're not given direction to work with. One of the actresses that people kind of defend in this movie was Joey King. Joey King really tries her best in this movie, but the problem is that the direction is so poor on their character that she's given nothing to work with. She's given zero material in order to handle her character correctly. And when you not have good performances, you'll also have truly terrible dialogue. There are lines in this movie, especially ones towards the beginning, that are so unspeakably bad that I really stood mystified based on the fact that this was written on a piece of paper and shipped out to movie studios. Seriously. My high school theater classes can write better dialogue in plays than Slender Man can. And one of the things that this movie also kind of defend is the cinematography. They say that it is very well shot in the film, but I hate to break it to you guys, this is some of the worst cinematography I have ever seen in a film. The reason why is because the movie has the cinematography and lighting and color palette as Alien vs. Predator Requiem, because you cannot see anything! The movie is so dark and it is so drearily in black, especially in scenes where it takes place in the forests, that it becomes extremely hard to see the characters' expressions, their face reactions. Even the movie's color palette is hideous. While the movie has its dreary, bleak, and shadowy look of the mixtures between like navy blue, dark blue, and black, but when the film uses a brown and gray filter during the daytime sequences, it looks even worse. And along with the film's atrocious cinematography is the horrible editing. When the movie has scenes of inevitable suspense and dread, as well as having unnecessary slow motion, but there are moments, especially in scenes where someone is attacking one of the main characters, and not only is the camera shaking all over the place, but the editing is so rapid fire that you have no idea what just happened or what is going on during the scene. And a lot of the editing affects the story as well. There are so many poorly made editing decisions when it comes across to the story. Not only are there moments that feel like that they're really missing in the final product of the film, but there are literally scenes in this movie that just feel completely out of order. For example, there is a scene where one of the characters is getting harassed by her best friend's alcoholic father, and then all of a sudden the scene stops and then it cuts to the guy getting arrested, and then a few scenes later he's back in his house again. I was like, wait a minute, isn't he supposed to be in jail? Isn't he supposed to be in jail for harassment? It's one of those moments where the movie doesn't have a logical explanation for anything going on in the film. And also the visual effects, they look like trash. You know that scene in The Bye-Bye Man where the Bye-Bye Man reveals his dog and it just looks downright terrible? When you see Slender Man in this movie, I'm not even making this up, it looks about as bad, if not worse, than a Sci-Fi Channel movie or a Roger Corman movie. It is so fake and noticeable that you just cannot hold your laughter every time you see it. And this is a horror movie, correct? The movie is not even scary, even the tiniest bit. The amount of scares that you really get in this movie all come down to disturbing imagery, like something out of The Ring, a non-scary atmosphere, and lots of jump scares. And the jump scares are executed so horribly that you can easily predict without any sort of precognitive abilities what is gonna happen and how the jump scare is gonna play out. The film also does some things like changing Slender Man's powers as they go along. Like, I understand one of his abilities is to kidnap children and to grow tendrils on his back, as that is in fact true. But apparently now in this movie he is able to track kids through FaceTime? Tracks kids through FaceTime? He causes kids to have hallucinations about him, similar to Jacob's Ladder, or even Nightmare on Elm Street. And when you find out what he really wants to do to these kids, it's more of a, that's it? But the worst part about this movie, full stop, it is so boring. Oh my god, this film was so boring. I was trying desperately hard not to fall asleep. The movie is 93 minutes long. It feels significantly longer. The movie drags and drags and drags up until the point where you're just begging for the movie to get to the end credits. Overall, guys, Slender Man is a horror movie abomination. The story is so tedious and lacks any kind of imagination. The acting is atrocious and the characters are unlikable. The visual effects are trash. The scares are barren. The cinematography and the color palette are hideous. The editing is horrible, and this movie is a tiring, boring slog to get through. At least the Bye Bye Man had an unintentionally hilarious scene towards the end. At least Ouija was boring, but at least it was trying something, and it had Olivia Cook in it, so that's a plus. This movie has nothing to offer. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So yeah, pretty much, you guys have already guessed it already. Slender Man for me gets a 0 out of 5. The only thing I can really say now is that I hope this movie doesn't make its budget back. Otherwise, we might get the Screen Gems Creepypasta cinematic universe. Why not? They can make individual movies of Jeff the Killer, Smile Dog, and the Rake while they're at it. Everyone, I'm telling you right now, do not go see this movie. It is a waste of your time, and it is one of the worst horror movies I have ever seen. Alright guys, so that is my review of Slender Man. Comment below, let me know what you thought about the movie. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Also, if you would like to see more reviews like this, be sure to subscribe for more. My name is Luke Nukem, and you, my friends, have been blown away.